everyone.
Morning.
The time is now 9:37 and a quorum of the board is present. The State Board of Education meeting of December 11th, 2018 is called to order. The first item on today's agenda is the approval of the agenda and the order of priority. Are there any items that board members would like to add or delete from the agenda?
So moved to adopt the agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
Or
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you very much. At this time, Marilyn, would you please introduce members of the State Board of Education?
Yes. You've just been listening to the Interim State Superintendent, Sheila Alice. She is also chairperson of the State Board of Education. And as we go around the table, co-president Richard Ziley resides in Dearborn. Co-president Cassandra Albrich resides in Rochester Hills. Michelle Fecto is the board secretary residing in Detroit. Nikki Snyder, board member who resides in Dexter. And next to her, this year's Teacher of the Year, Laura Chang. She's from Vicksburg Public Schools, and that's where she is when she's not here and doing Michigan Teacher of the Year business. Eileen Weiser is at the end of the table there. Eileen is unable to join us today. She is a board member who resides in Ann Arbor. This is Tyler Sawyer. He represents the governor here at the table, and he is the strategic advisor for Education and Career Connections. Next to him, Lupe Ramos-Montini, board member from Grand Rapids. Pamela Pugh, board member from Saginaw. Tom McMillan from Oakland Township, the board's treasurer. I'm Marilyn Schneider. I'm the state board executive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kyle, I believe we have a new employee in your division. Please introduce that person.
yes, Sheila, it's our pleasure to introduce Kelsey Schell to the board today. Kelsey, can you just introduce yourself and tell them about your work here?
Hi, I'm Kelsey. I just got hired for the school nutrition program area, and then breakfast and lunch reviews.
Thank you. And I would like to welcome Dr. Bill Pearson to the Michigan Department of Ed. Bill is the school reform officer as well as the director of the Partnership District Office. And Bill, would you say a few words to the board, please?
I'm on a steep learning curve. I've been in education for 44 years, superintendent for 23 years in 20 years in South Lyon. I've met a lot of people, learning a lot of faces and names, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Okay, thank you. Did we miss any new employees? Okay, thank you very much and welcome everyone. And now if we could please have the audience introduce themselves, and I'll start with Marty.
Hi, I'm Marty Ackley. I'm the Director in the Office of Public and Governmental Affairs here at the Department of Education.
Good morning. I'm Caroline Leekman. I'm the Legislative Liaison for the Department of Education.
Good morning. I'm Lois Lofton Donover from the American Federation of Teachers.
Good morning. Stacey Bogard, Michigan Association.
Hi, I'm Alicia Fly, Assistant Superintendent for Macomb Intermediate School District.
John Pearson, Director of Partnership District.
Good morning. My name is Meg McFarland. I'm a Legislative Assistant at the
Karen Slunger, Superintendent of Calhoun Intermediate School District.
Office of Systems Evaluation Technology here in the department.
And Quinn, Public Policy Association.
Aisha Baldwin, Professional Issues Organizer, Michigan Education Association.
Jim Goodspeed, Region 4, Michigan Teacher of the Year, Fulton High School, Middleton, Michigan.
Morning all, Scott Kenishnick. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for P20 Systems and Student Transition.
Morning, Kyle Grant, Deputy Superintendent for Finance and Operations.
Deputy Superintendent for Educators, Student, School Support.
Good morning, Mark Howe with the Superintendent's Office.
Once again, thank you everyone for being here and welcome. If any of you plan to offer public comment at today's meeting, we ask that you please complete a form and get it to Marilyn. Forms are available on the table outside of the boardroom, and they must be submitted prior to the beginning of the portion of the meeting devoted to public comment. Public comment will begin immediately following our lunch break, scheduled at approximately 1 p.m. today. Please be here on time to make sure that you have an opportunity to provide comment. Today, we say a very heartfelt thank you to Dr. Richard Ziley and to Mrs. Eileen Lappin-Weiser. These esteemed board members are concluding their terms of office on the State Board of Education. Dr. Z, as we fondly refer to him, has served on the board for 8 years. Perfect timing.
Perfect.
Yes, it was.
Perfect.
Right. Dr. Z has served on the board for 8 years, holding the offices of co-president, treasurer, and delegate to the National Association of State Boards of Education. Mrs. Weiser, who is unable to be with us today, she has been on the board for 16 years. Her first term was from January 1, 1999 until January 1 of 2007. And she is finishing her second term, which began on January 1 of 2011 and concludes on January 1 of 2019. Both Dr. Z and Mrs. Weiser are extremely dedicated public servants who are committed to the betterment of children and of public education in Michigan. They speak on behalf of students and educators in Michigan so very eloquently, and they advocate for them. And we are extremely grateful for your years of service. We would also like to thank Tyler Sawyer from the Governor's Office. He represents the Governor's Office on the State Board of Education. This is also his last Board of Education meeting, and we want to acknowledge and thank him for his service to the State Board of Education. It's been a pleasure having and had an opportunity to work with you, Tyler. So and a reception will be held following today's meeting to acknowledge and to give our thanks to both Dr. Z and to Eileen, who isn't here today. And our reception will begin at approximately 3 o'clock. So the first item on today's agenda is the adoption of a resolution honoring Dr. Richard Ziley. I would like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
And seconded. And any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So I would now like to ask that our co-president, Cassandra Ulbrich, please present the resolution to Dr. Ziley.
So we usually don't read the resolutions, but we're going to make an exception today because I think it's important that people get to hear the breadth of the work that you have done and the contributions you've made to the State Board of Education. So the resolution says, whereas Dr. Richard Ziley was elected to the State Board of Education in November 2010 for an 8-year term from January 1st, 2011 to January 1st, 2019, and whereas Dr. Ziley, who affectionately is known as Dr. Z, was ordained in the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod, Synod. Thank you. Has served Lutheran parochial schools for most of his professional life and also a year as chaplain resident at Detroit Sinai Grace Hospital. And whereas Dr. Z worked for the successful Michigan Civil Rights Initiative in 2006 and currently is a member of the NAACP and American Family Association. And whereas Dr. Z currently is serving as co-president of the State Board of Education, where the board is governed with bipartisan shared power, and previously served as board treasurer and the state board's delegate to the National Association of State Boards of Education as elected by his peers. And whereas Dr. Z was appointed chair of the NASB Study Group on Rural Education and served as the Central Area Director on NASB's Board of Directors and on its Public Education Positions Committee. And whereas Dr. Z has written many articles on educational policy and presented at various public and educational leadership forums. And whereas Dr. Z has helped organize a public school academy in Michigan and served as president of another charter school from 2005 to 2009, has served as pastor and headmaster at St. John's Lutheran Church in Taylor, Michigan, and as adjunct professor of education at Concordia University in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And whereas Dr. Z has been a thoughtful and measured presence on the State Board of Education and brings a guided wisdom to its deliberations. And whereas Dr. Z is known for his thought-provoking allegory. That is
Or analogies. On that.
and metaphors during policy discussions at the State Board table, and his dedication toward the goal of providing every child in Michigan choice and opportunity to receive a quality education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Michigan State Board of Education extends to Dr. Richard Ziley its highest regard and heartfelt gratitude for the dedication and expertise he has brought to the children of Michigan, their parents, and the millions of Michigan citizens whose lives have been enhanced through its efforts. And be it finally resolved that the Michigan State Board of Education expresses its fervent wish that Dr. Richard Ziley continues to enjoy many rewarding experiences with family, friends, and colleagues.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for your
Thank
service.
you.
and service.
I guess I'll say a few words at the reception. My first thought is be careful what you put on Facebook. It'll come back to haunt you. And I am just so deeply honored by you, my colleagues, and it's undeserved, but I enjoy it nevertheless. So.
Thank you very much.
And now, if I may, we have a resolution for Eileen Lappin-Weiser. I move the board adopt this.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Well, I too will read the resolution in full because I think Eileen has a remarkable record, and having served 2 terms on our State Board of Education is even more deserving of this. Whereas Eileen Lappin-Weiser was elected in 1998. Oh, okay. Whereas Eileen Lappin-Weiser was elected in 1998 to an 8-year term on Michigan State Board of Education, serving as its treasurer from 2001 to 2002, was re-elected to the State Board of Education in November of 2010 for an 8-year term from January 1st, 2011 to January 1st, 2019. And whereas Mrs. Weiser has served and led in many capacities during her 16 years on the State Board of Education, most recently as chair of the State Board's Legislative Committee, and previously on the State Board's task force on ensuring excellent educators, and has participated in National Association of State Board of Education study groups on teacher coordination and accountability and on e-learning. And whereas Mrs. Weiser graduated from Michigan State University with a Bachelor of Music in 1972 and a Master of Music from University of Michigan in 1975, that gives her a stake in both football teams, both in piano and performance. Whereas Mrs. Weiser served as music instructor, substitute teacher in Saginaw Public Schools in 72 to 73, and as teaching assistant at University of Michigan School of Music, 74 to 75, and 75 to 82, she sold residential and commercial real estate. And whereas Mrs. Weiser lived with her family in the Slovak Republic 2001 to 2004, while her husband, the Honorable Ronald Weiser, served as U.S. Ambassador, all the while committed to her position on the State Board of Education, whereas Mrs. Weiser was appointed by the U.S. Secretary of Education to serve 2 terms on the National Assessment Governing Boards, the organization that designs, administers, and reports on student success in the United States, and on the NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, known as the nation's report card, where she served on NAGB's executive committee. And whereas Mrs. Weiser has also served as a board member of the Fund for Improvement of Post-Secondary Education, was appointed by Michigan Supreme Court to its Attorney Disciplinary Board, and currently serves as a board member for the Michigan Science Center. And whereas Mrs. Weiser brought 16 years of wisdom and depth of knowledge from her national education and civics experiences and engagement to policy and discussions of the state board table, now therefore be it resolved that the Michigan State Board of Education extends to Eileen Lappenweiser its highest regard and heartfelt gratitude for the dedication and expertise she has brought to her service on the State Board of Education on behalf of the children of Michigan, their parents, and the millions of Michigan citizens her work has affected and impacted. And be it finally resolved that the Michigan State Board of Education express its fervent wish that Eileen Lappenweiser continues to enjoy many rewarding experiences with her family, friends, and colleagues.
Thank you very much, Dr. C. We will make sure that Eileen does receive this resolution. Are there any board members who would like to offer comments at this time?
Well, first I want to let it be known that in Eileen's honor, there's bread and big healthy donuts in the back from our favorite bakery in Saginaw, Spots Bakery. So I just want to say thank you, Dr. Z, as well as Eileen, for what I've been able to learn from you, as well as the relationship that we've been able to have despite of our differences in some political issues, but others we've been able to align on. And so I just am tremendously honored and a better person for having known the two of you. So thank you for your service.
Well, I have to say something. Well, first of all, I congratulate you and Eileen for having served the many years that you did. It's been an honor for me to participate on the State Board of Education with you and Eileen. I remember one time I asked that I wanted to run for a vice chair or vice president of this group, and they said to me, no, because you are working too closely to the Republicans. So I did work closely, as close as I could, with you and Eileen. And I think, as Pam said very wisely, my life was lots better because of you and Eileen. And I really appreciated the support that you and Eileen gave me as we gathered funds for scholarships for the students in Grand Rapids under the committee to honor Cesar Estrada Chavez. So I thank you, and I know this is not going to be our last time. I know I'm going to see you again. And who knows what we're going to be working on in the future. So I thank you.
Very much. Yes, Michelle?
It's going to sound repetitive, but I've enjoyed sitting next to you and the times that we've sat next to each other. I appreciate your humor and your very sincere compassion for the people in the state, for the children. You know, we might also not always agree, but you were not afraid to take a position based on your principles. And I think we were able to work together in a bipartisan way because, you know, there were things that sort of transcended party. And I appreciate the fact that you were willing to look at things in a thoughtful, to me, in my opinion, in a thoughtful way, and not afraid to do that. And Eileen, she, you know, again, even though we might not have agreed on a lot of, well, on some political issues, was always respectful, was always able to have a conversation and enjoy each other's company. And even though we're different and some political aspects, I consider she a friend, and I consider you a friend, which I hope will continue. Thank you.
Dr. Z.
I just wanted to add regarding Eileen, I first thought about running for State Board of Education because I met Eileen and she was in her first term, and she made the work sound so vital and so interesting and so exciting, and of course half of that is Eileen's personality, but she was totally right, and so her example and inspiration is the reason I was able to serve on the board, and I want to thank her. Whether she's watching live or sees the rerun, so.
Thank you.
I guess I've certainly appreciated, Dr. Z, your wisdom and insight and calming effect in many ways. And Eileen certainly has no doubt a passion for education, and probably disagree with her more than yourself, Dr. Z, but she certainly brought a lot to the table and a lot of good insights, and so appreciate you both.
And we will continue this recognition and celebration at 3 o'clock today during our reception, so we hope that everyone in the room will be able to join us. Okay, so we will move on to the first item on the Committee of the Whole agenda, which is the presentation on State Education Technology Plan, known as My Roadmap. This is an annual progress report on Michigan's Educational Technology Plan, which was first presented to the board in March of 2017. This is a yearly update, and board action is not required. Our presenters joining us at the board table this morning are Vanessa Kiesler, Deputy Superintendent of Education, School and Student Supports, Michelle Rybent, Director of the 21st Century Learning, and Anne Marie Mapes, Educational Technology Manager. Thank you and good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, and thank you for having us today to give you an update on the My Roadmap, our state tech plan. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle and Anne-Marie. You had the opportunity to see them last month, I think, so they're back again.
And actually, this is a nice follow-up to our last month's presentation on the open educational resources work that is embedded in this plan, actually. So you'll see that in the plan itself. So just a little history. The Michigan Educational Technology Plan was one time a federal requirement to receive certain categories of federal funding around educational technology. That is no longer required, but we've kept up with this 5-year planning process, and we're in year 2 now of our 5-year plan because it is so helpful, not only for us, but some of our strategic partners that we work closely with. And I would like to acknowledge some of our partners in the room today. We have Dave Carey, who's the Director of Operations for MAISA, and we also have representatives from McCall, Mark Smith, their Executive Director, and Gina Lovelace, their Treasurer, who's also the Ed Tech Director for Paw Paw Public Schools. We also have strategic partners, Ramsey Association and Michigan Virtual, who have been very active with our group, and also other subgroups of MAISA, the General Education Leadership Network, GELN, and METAL, the Michigan Educational Technology Leadership Network, that all really are use this plan as some of their working document as well. In addition to that, the plan is fully aligned with the top 10 and 10 goals, which help keep our Ed Tech unit aligned with the work of the department. The plan itself is organized around these 5 goals, major goals, and we're going to talk about each one briefly. I'm going to turn it over to Anne Marie for the teaching and learning goals.
So the learning goal is focusing that so that learners will have engaging and empowering experiences, both formally and informally, so that they'll become citizens prepared to be successful in the global workplace and society. So this is aligned to the top 10 and 10 strategic goal 2. This is really grounded in the work that we've done around the Michigan Integrated Technology Competencies for Students, the new MyTechs, which replaced the 2009 Michigan Educational Technology Standards for Students. So as of 2013, there is no longer an assessment that's required for 8th grade digital literacy. So since that is gone, we took a new approach to this as digital literacy supports learning across the content areas. It is no longer that kind of class where you're pulled out to learn about computers and how they work. It's kind of inherent to our learning now. So what we've completed, you'll see up in the right-hand corner, that we've completed this work. This was all laid out in our plan for my roadmap. We've completed the work. This was launched back in late 2017 and in early 2018. So if we go on, part of our work here that's in progress are resources for educators to design learning experience that address the MyText. So we're working with our professional associations and our partners to establish some toolkits and resources that help teachers to design these experiences. We're also working to develop personalized learning goals for students and assist teachers with establishing those. We're also working on student-level creation of OER. So that's something that came up last meeting in looking at open educational resources. Well, can students do these too? And yes, they can. And so we've seen a little bit of that play out in some of our Go Open districts, such as Wayland Union, but we're looking to expand those opportunities for students. Also, we're working with one of our partners, the Michigan Association of Media and Education, to develop a digital citizenship toolkit, and that will also live on our Go Open Michigan site. So that's in the works also. And then finally, which you'll see next month, is the development of the K-12 computer science standards. So we launched a committee in May of this year, and the standards recommendation will go to the board in January of 2019. So we're thinking that this work, all laid out in my roadmap, will really help to transform the way that students are learning. In terms of teaching, this was our second goal, goal 2 of 5 included in the roadmap. Educators will be supported in understanding the skills necessary for students to become these citizens of a successful workplace and society. So how do we use instructional technology to accelerate student learning? Also aligned to top 10 and 10 strategic goal 2. So as we look at this, we really look at the creation of the Go Open Michigan microsite, which provides a one-stop shop for those teacher resources, and you saw a glimpse of that last month again. We're also, we've also completed with our partner at the REMC a list of regional technology specialist contacts. And so what that helps is if I'm a classroom teacher in, say, Paw Paw, where Gina is teaching, I can go on here and look and say, where is my specialist that I can reach out to for help in integrating educational technology in the classroom? And if you don't know, if there's not a strong relationship built between your REMC or ISD and the district, this can help say, where do I need to go for these supports? So we think that this is going to be really helpful, in addition to the wealth of resources that are available through all of our other strategic partners. What is in progress are resources for teachers to transform using learning technology. So those are the teacher-level supports that address the MyText, those integrated technology competencies for students. So we're working with all our partners on how we do that. Also, micro-credentialing for educators. So we foreshadowed the computer science standards, which are coming to you next month for just the first presentation. But these computer science standards, we know that teachers need resources to help them in delivery to students. So how can we best do that? By providing opportunities for teachers to earn micro-credentials in computer science. So those are in progress. We hope to be working on those over the next few years to help teachers become ready to teach computer science and coding and computational thinking. Also, expansion of professional learning opportunities. So looking at multiple modalities, how are we getting resources to teachers and how can they participate in those? So some of those you'll see through MAISA and the work of MISH through EduPaths. And EduPaths has expanded the way that we're thinking about professional development. Also the same with McCall and their facilitated and in-person opportunities around the state, as well as with Michigan Virtual, that is another one of our partners, and the REMC resources as well. So we definitely have many partnerships and we're all working together on how we can help support teachers in the educational technology space.
So our third goal is around assessment, and really we are looking to, as you see, leverage technology for more authentic and timely assessments of student learning. If we look specifically at some of the assessment things that are underway, we had a big leap forward as the state migrated to online testing for the M-STEP a few years ago. And in readiness for that, our unit was very involved in a grant called the TRIG grant that you've heard updates on over the years.
but that resulted in not only building the capacity for schools to successfully deliver the actual testing event itself, but all of the readiness that foreshadowed that about readiness in the classroom, getting students used to working on computers more authentically for teaching and learning, as well as assessment. And I think some of those early successes really led to the ultimate summative assessment success that we had. We're also helping push that message around digital literacy and assessment literacy so that students become really well versed at both of those skills, which will go on long beyond their K-12 careers. And the other exciting component around assessment is this real movement to allow students to demonstrate what they know and can do in a variety of ways and using a lot of different technology-assisted modalities. So some of the things that are happening in classrooms and at the interim and formative assessment level around the state have been very exciting, and we've seen some of those on some of the site visits that we've done. In addition to that, the district supports for balanced assessment, again, using technology to leverage formative, interim, and summative assessment, and really to support educators in the use of OERs, even specific to our assessments. So there's been some work done, particularly around the new Michigan science standards for performance tasks that are hosted on our Go Open site for schools to use. And these are more project-based learning or problem-based learning assessments that are technology-aided, as well as deep in the science learning itself. So we're excited about some of those activities in support of assessment. Our next goal is around leadership. And leadership is key, as it is for all of our initiatives, but really to have the leaders in schools and districts and at the state understand that this creation of these rich, transformative environments in education are not easy, and they have to be modeled by leaders, and then all of the activities around them supported. Some of those specific activities that are in progress or completed include the work on the competency-based grant that's happening right now. In order for students to move along a competency-based pathway, they need to be getting really frequent feedback on how they're doing against their skills and knowledge. And really, without technologies in place that help create that authentic feedback loop, that is very difficult. So with the competency-based education schools, we've been working with them on some of the data warehouses that they use, the formative assessments that they're using, as well as their interim assessments, to make sure that that feedback is happening authentically, and as students move forward through a competency-based system or demonstrate that they need more supports along the way, that those technologies are being used. We've also initiated and just completed technology integration at the School Improvement Conference. We had a Boosted by Technology segment in each presentation to show how schools are really authentically using technology to work on all of their school improvement goals. And it's really, there were some really exciting things happening there. And then, as you heard last month, the promotion and use of OERs. This really represents a seismic shift. If schools move toward digital content, the authentic use of digital content, that is a big change, to not have paper textbooks in place exclusively anymore, and also some of the day-to-day activities that students do and produce that can be delivered using technologies. We're also very involved in the MySTEM network work, so the migration to the MySTEM regions, and not only representing the T in STEM for technology and some of the work that's being done there, but also to look at how the use of technology across all of the STEM content areas is being facilitated. Some of the things that we have in progress, we're collaborating with some of our partners here in the room and otherwise on micro-credentialing efforts for leaders through MEMSPA, MASA, and Michigan Virtual. So those are some exciting developments. And then what does the migration of micro-credentials, and we work on student-level micro-credentials often too for FIRST Robotics and Google CS First, et cetera. What does the migration of those micro-credentials through our existing systems look like, and how can we get those on student transcripts ultimately so they can take that portable credential with them when they leave their K-12 environment? We're also very involved in the Title IV Part A, the access to and use of technology under Title IV, and we've been involved in the road shows that we've had on those. And I am here to tell you that there are some very exciting things happening around schools in Michigan that are leveraging technology and also extending student and teacher learning. Our last goal is our infrastructure goal, and if we don't have an effective infrastructure to support the technology, it just becomes a concern. The schools bog down with the technologies they have. It's not realistic to use in the classroom every day, et cetera. So we've had a big focus on this infrastructure goal within our plan. And one of the things is the establishment of a position within our ed tech unit for an E-rate consultant. That's Joe Plasek in our office. And he has been in place for just over a year now and been a real assistant to our partners and our local districts and libraries as they work on writing for and getting E-rate funds into our state. Also, another big breakthrough in our partnerships with MAISA has been the development of the MySem network, which is an actual physical network that connects all of the intermediate school districts now. That was part of the TRIG grant. And they also take advantage of E-rate funding, which they have captured up to date $11.6 million for the establishment of that technical infrastructure to connect all intermediate school districts. Now phase 2 is to connect all districts to that robust infrastructure. So that's been really exciting news. We also obviously, again, go open resources. If we can provide that infrastructure for schools to support their curriculum resources, that is a big infrastructure upgrade. And then the continued expansion of the REMC online tools. Did I not go forward? Oh, for REMC Association. As part of TRIG, REMC established a spot bid process that has saved schools multi-millions of dollars by bringing in pricing from all of our computer vendors below educational list price. So far in TRIG, schools have purchased over 700,000 devices on that spot bid at below educational prices. So whether you're using Apple devices or Dell or whatever computers you're using in your districts, that group pricing has saved tens of millions of dollars for our schools. So we're really excited about that.
So finally, in progress on infrastructure, is ensuring that all districts, buildings, and public school academies have an internet connection that allows for transformative learning. So there are some targets that the FCC, in conjunction with the State Educational Technology Directors Association, have established. We want to make sure that all our districts and buildings are meeting those. MySen is doing its part to provide some technical assistance supports to districts and others who wish to upgrade their connections. But really, what else are we doing? So we're also looking at providing alternative connection methods to parents and guardians who lack internet access. Those may be in unserved areas or underserved areas, or might lack that access due to socioeconomic issues. So the governor's office recently released the plan, the Michigan Partnership for Broadband Advancement, and that plan is kind of looking holistically around the state at how we're trying to ensure that everybody has connectivity. When you send a student home with homework and they have either OER or they need access to the internet to do research or connect with their colleagues or all these kinds of things that we rely on the internet so much to do, a lot of students don't have that access. So how can we help? Some schools are sending their students home with hotspots and mobile devices. Students have to drive to libraries. I'm sure you're all aware of some of the workarounds that students have had to deal with and their parents have had to deal with for this. But schools also can help by using their title dollars to send home these hotspots. And so we're trying to push the thinking both in our state and nationally about how we can help serve those students as well. So as we think about our next steps, we are going to continue working on my roadmap with our strategic partners. As Michelle said earlier, this is a 5-year plan and we are in year 2 of 5. We are going to continue convening a yearly review of our progress with our stakeholder group. So we're looking at doing that in mid-2019. And also further identify those areas of weakness and where we can focus on for more supports. My roadmap is just another example of coming together with our strategic partners to move our work forward in Michigan.
And before I turn it back to Sheila for questions, I do just want to reiterate what Anne-Marie and Michelle have both highlighted about the partnerships here. When you really think about the reach of doing any work from the State Department, but I think you especially think about technology, making sure that all 1.5 million Michigan students have access to technology to support their learning. You're talking about 900 districts and 3,400 schools and 125,000 educators, and those 1.5 million kids and their families and guardians and community organizations. So the reach is really big. And the partnerships that have been built around this work and the energy and the focus on ensuring this, it's an equity issue, actually. Inequitable access to these resources is one of many things that Michigan needs to keep an eye on, or else it's just another way to have haves and have-nots. So I really appreciate the partners who are in the room, who work on this, and I appreciate our team's leadership in this area. This is not work we could do independently. There'd be too many points of not success, not implementation. But it is, to keep so many partners rowing in the same direction is not easy. But we wouldn't be where we are as a state in terms of having the technological infrastructure to promote learning. And that's the other thing I would just remind us of. I know we do these presentations sometimes about the technology roadmap, but I hope you heard through here, we don't think this is the end goal. It's not just enough for every student to have a device or every school to be connected. It's about how those things work in support of an authentic and exciting instructional experience, how educators can use them in support of our 10 and 10 goals, and how we as a state, that's one tool that we need to have working toward our improvements that we know we need for all kids. So it is not an end unto itself, but it would be hard to get there without this work in place. So, Sheila?
Okay. Thank you to our team for the presentation, the update on the My Roadmap plan. And thank you also to our partners who are in the room and the partners who aren't in the room for continuing to support these efforts and this work. So now I'll open it up to comments or questions from board. I see Tom and then Dr. Z and then Laura.
I guess I'd like to know, can you, any of you or all three of you, tell me why is it that tech gurus in Silicon Valley send their kids to Waldorf schools and others that are anti-technology?
Why do you think they do that?
I'm asking you because you guys are heading this project up, so I'm just asking you.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's that one school in Silicon Valley that it got a lot of play in the media. Yeah. I mean, I think it's an interesting question about how we all interact with technology in our lives. I think there's swings and ebbs and flows, and I think I personally go through, I'm going to get off my phone more, and then I'm on my phone more, and things like that. So I think we're just trying to understand about how to intersect with technology. That's one choice. I think we want to enable parents to make those choices, but also not make it be a de facto choice. So if you want your kids to have access to learning that's technologically supported and enabled, that's a possibility. And again, we believe that technology is part of an approach. It's not the whole approach. Mm-hmm. That's true for us as humans, and it's true for us as educators, and it's true for learners.
Do you think they could maybe send their kids to these because they see downside to technology in schools?
That is probably why they do that.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they are writing the Bible on education and technology, but I hope that the paradigm is not all this stuff is good and there's no downside. I hope that if it's discovered that there are some concerns, that we will articulate those, even if it kind of goes against the grain, or I think it's easy to go with the flow of the stream, but I mean, I hope that we're going to be looking at this, because obviously some people that are very high tech feel that there are real problems with technology in the classrooms, and I hope that we will assess, the supplanting of teachers that obviously is occurring, because if you're spending more time with computers assessing where you're at, you're spending less time with something, and it's probably teachers. So what is that impact? I don't know if we are in a place to judge whether it's good or bad, but maybe just put it out there so that it's clear, so we're not kind of have tunnel vision and say this is always going to be good. Data privacy, I mean, I hope that we're talking a lot about the concerns with data privacy and how there could be real problems with that as they just continually and also third-party software. I hear all the time that, you know, schools either mistakenly or purposefully put in third-party software, and then there's all kind of data collection on the children. And so I hope that there's opt-outs, there's potential, you know, suggestions for all these things, that we really are, you know, looking at this not just kind of with the assumption that it's all going to be good, but there are some downsides. And as we heard last month, there are certainly some problems with personalized learning and CBE. I think the presenter gave us a whole laundry list of things that are real problems. And so I hope that that it's not just, again, something that it's assumed that this is all going to be good. And, you know, I mean, we don't even have to be doing this stuff, it appears. We are a local control school, you know, state, so I hope that we're giving information and not kind of pushing them necessarily in a direction. But there could be schools that decide this stuff's not any good, or parents or districts or school boards that say, you know, we're going to go in a different direction. And I hope they're not shunned, or they're not ridiculed, or they're not looked at as something that's a problem. They could be the ones at the cutting edge doing the right thing, actually.
Thank you, Tom. Dr. Z?
Okay. Kind of piggybacking on Tom's comments, about 4 or 5 years ago, thanks to NASB, we had opportunity to look at the technology plan for the state of Utah. And I found that such a compelling plan, because it began with the assumption that technology is a tool to help the teacher in the task. And the plan was worked out on that basis. And I think that had the clarity and the direction that maybe you're seeking here. I'll commend that to my colleagues. My particular questions were these. Do we have a sense for the percentage of those who are not connected to the internet? Do we have districts that are not connected? Do we have a sense of how many out of our 300 districts or so?
We do. We've done a lot of work with the TRIG, our MTRAC survey work that we had done. So we have a real clear idea of where students are with their connectivity to the school and within the school network. So our E-rate consultant, Joe Polasek, looks at that data often. And our partners, MAISA, through the work that they're doing with the SEN, have a really clear picture of where the schools are currently, and then that goal, that 2020 goal of establishing a broadband level for each student. So we do have that clearly delineated and mapped in the case of MAISA's network building. And so we do know the schools that have robust infrastructure and those that are still working toward that.
Is there a reason you didn't include that in your report to us today?
It's really under the infrastructure. We can get you that information. It's with the Merit Network and the MAISA MySen work. We could give you a very technical report on where schools are around the state. And actually, proudly, the redundancy that's built through Wisconsin now to provide that really robust network infrastructure. So we have all that technical data.
So we can provide that as a follow-up to the board.
Okay, and I don't need all the detail, but I am curious as to what percentage of our districts and what percentage of our schools and what percentage of our students don't have the internet access. Can you give me like just a broad?
Well, we know from our assessment results that 99% of our schools tested successfully online. And that's sort of a broad brush indicator that really 100% of our schools have some access. We do have a couple of schools that for reasons have restricted use within their school to students.
Okay.
But otherwise, all of our schools have some level of connectivity, but not robust enough to support, say, a one-to-one environment.
Okay. And then of what percentage of students don't have the access? Do we have a sense for? And I think that's more important for middle school and up rather than elementary on down. So I'm more concerned with the secondary proportion.
All schools, 100% of schools have access at some level. It's the model. Whether or not a student walks down to a computer science class and it's a hardwired class, so they may only have access during those courses, or if they have carts in place that are wheeled into classrooms for strategic use, or they have a one-to-one setting. And that's really up to the district and the mode that they use to deliver or provide access to computers to students. And it really
Okay.
depends on their teaching and learning models. So
and I
they
guess
can
I'm-
support each.
I'm sorry, I guess I wasn't clear. I presume that students have some measure of access in school, but this is going with the comment that, many students don't have access outside of school. And so I'm curious as to do we have a sense for what proportion of students, say secondary students, who might be expected to do some homework and require online and don't have that?
So I think we'd have to go back and look. I know a figure was included in the recent report out of the governor's office on the Consortium of Advanced Networks. We'd have to go back and look because I've heard a figure that's a national figure at about 5 million. Not sure if those have K-12 students in the home or not.
Yeah.
This is not a figure that all schools collect necessarily. So this is something that we would like to have a better grasp of. We could take a look at the American Community Survey as well to get a hold of that number.
So we don't have a clear idea as to how many Michigan students lack this access?
Correct.
Okay. So how do we know where to do the hotspots and other alternatives?
Well, to the point that actually Tom was making about local control. So what we're suggesting, and it is true, all of this gets, like everything else in Michigan, gets implemented through local control. So the board has to agree on the learning model, superintendent has to present a learning model. This is largely funded through local funds. I mean, almost exclusively, minus a little bit of Title IV and a little bit of TRIG and a little bit of in-kind. This is something that districts take up in their bond proposals or their school and site sinking fund proposals. So this is a local decision what path you go on here. To that point, we don't necessarily know where the hotspots need to be. The districts would be doing a needs assessment. We have a tool that the MTRACS that helps them know, do we need connectivity, do we not? And then they would perhaps say, when they look at all their possible funding, let's say they didn't have technology in their sinking fund. So they might say, well, maybe what we should do is use some of our title dollars to send hotspots home for these 12 kids who we know don't have access. We aren't distributing hotspots from up here. We are distributing funds to districts and then giving them guidance about the parameters of what those funds can be used for. But it is on the districts to decide, how do we want our students to learn? How does technology fit into that? How are we going to fund the technology? And how do we use our funds effectively? And so to that point, a district could say, we don't want to do technology at all. Technology bears 0 point in our learning model, and we will not do anything with technology. And that is an option. And I think some probably are lower tech than others.
It seems to me we have some sense as to what proportion of Michigan children are lacking in food, and then we have the massive school lunch program to meet that need. And I would, I guess, urge the department to come up with some. And again, I'm not looking for exact percentages, but just a sense of who. What students are without the connectivity and maybe map out the regions where that is. So.
That's a good point. And I think that you're going to hear next month about MyKIP, our continuous improvement work. In there is this idea of comprehensive needs assessments across all areas and more data that districts will be looking at, but then we'll have a better sense because, like Anne-Marie said, we don't collect that. We don't require schools to tell us right now how many students have. That'd be additional data collection. But as we roll out this continuous improvement process, there will be an opportunity for districts to reflect on that and also that information have a state view. So to your point, we can then be a little more targeted in our supports and our delivery of services. Okay. So thank you for those comments.
Thank you. Laura, and then to Michelle.
I have two things. First, a comment. Thank you for your work with the statewide online purchasing tool. As a teacher, like so many, we spend our own funds on things, the small things that our students need, like headphones, or use grant funds for that. But the money that I've saved personally, and I know my colleagues through that purchasing option have been really helpful. So teachers are using that at the teacher level and certainly at the district level, like you talked about too. Second, my question about how will you share out the information to teachers? Like, where's my REMC and the micro credentialing options? How will teachers get that info?
What have you guys thought about now?
So in terms of the micro-credentialing for computational thinking and computer science, those have yet to be established, and that's all part of our communication plan around the computer science standards. So that's something that we're going to be working on. Actually, this Thursday, we're meeting with our committee, and so we're going to be talking about communication and implementation supports.
And that would go out through Michigan Virtual and McCall and our REMC Association. Those are our really big partners in our professional learning models.
But I think you're calling an important point that I'd like to actually ask back to you in particular, but everybody. We struggle to get information all the way to teachers. They're just not listening. We aren't saying things in places where they're looking and vice versa, and we need to improve there. So that is a point of, I think, improvement we want to keep working on as a department, is how do we get into teacher networks? I know our Teacher Leadership Advisory Council has been helping us with that, but I think we can, so you're right, we can distribute it through these networks, and that might not help a classroom teacher because that's not where they're looking for information. So I think that's an open, we have improvements, area for improvement, and we would love to work with you on that.
Great.
And all the regional, I mean, they're on the Teacher Leader Advisory, so.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to get a handle of how much money it costs the state. And I know it's on a district level, and it has to be through local millages, I assume, right? Not even the ISD millages would pay for that, or is that ISD millages would pay?
Funding, let's do the state money first. There was the large trig investment 5 years ago, but that money is largely gone and not been re-upped. It's been invested wisely. So that's the big investment. The remaining state money that's specifically possibly for this is the Title IV pot, but that is a pot that has 42 funding streams in it and not a large pot. So it's, what's our grant? I can't think of, it's in the low millions for the whole state. So individual grants to districts are relatively small. The bulk of the funding is coming from local sources.
Okay. So
now there are the REMCs, districts do a lot with their ISDs, with their regional, so the funding models are not, every district does this independently, but most of the money that's going into this is not coming from the state writing an independent check for technology.
So what's the estimate that it costs the state for, and I know we've got the purchasing, I know it takes the repair, to repair these things, to replace them, to update them. Is there any assessment done in a report that looks at the investment that's coming from education funds to cover these costs?
You mean like education funds, the whole bucket, how much districts are spending?
Yeah, like how much is our state, either at the local district or at the state level, investing in this? So what I'm getting at is, I know it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and if we go through another recession, I know living in Detroit, communities with the financial structure that we have, the education funding we have now, if you live in a district where the property values are fairly low, it's really hard to maintain and to keep this up, especially if we go through the ups and downs of our economy. So I'm concerned about that, and I wondered if anybody has looked at the amount of money, how competitive is so I know you have these places where you can purchase, like how many vendors are there that are we purchasing from? Are there certain people that have some solid financial interest in our state that we should just be concerned about? That they might be more interested in making a profit than necessarily what's in the best educational interest. So that's what I'm trying to get to. And I know the department and people who work here, care deeply, and I respect the expertise but I'm just wondering, is there any look at the larger financial picture, how to make sure that that people who may have a lot to gain financially through this system don't have undue influence in the system?
So
You got me?
Yep, I do. So I think the short answer is no, we don't have a good sense of exactly how much is spent, because again, it's all done in local budgets. And we do get some reporting from that. I mean, we could probably go and look at the line items for technology or whatnot, but we don't have, that's not a number that we track. I think you're right about the importance of local boards having good purchasing rules, good contract rules. How do you let contracts? How do you decide what's your, but that is local. So if a board isn't doing their due diligence to have processes and procedures in place to award contracts appropriately, that, you know, this is the push and pull of a local control state is,
right.
That's, so I don't think we have a sense of it. It might be helpful for us to have a couple districts give some information on
Right, well,
how-
even
how
at
they
the-
approach this,
Yeah,
but-
where you were talking about, you have these purchasing places where you can go, where they can go, and they say that we've saved tens of millions of dollars. Well,
yes.
What is
we
that
know-
percentage of what was spent? You
Right.
know, so how?
So
is
what
that- was
we
that
know is that the
10%
price of the computer would have been 300, but they negotiate the price to 200, and then 1,000 computers were bought, so.
Okay.
10,000, no, a million was saved.
So,
Yeah.
so so the point is I guess it's getting back to what Tom said. As we are, you know, districts are spending and encouraged to spend a lot of money, and relying more and more on the technology to teach based on this, you know, anytime, any place, whatever that this is, and then assuming that that's great and better. I just, I am concerned that we need to really assess if that direction is really provides the kids in our state the education that is really the best, you know, that is really based on research and finding that that's really in the best interest of the state to have that, and to really assess it and not just assume that that's great. So so anyway, that's, I just want to make sure that we're looking with an eye on really what works, what doesn't, looking at research, not necessarily the bells and whistles, and especially when there's certain entities that may be influencing the system that have a lot of money to gain out of it, so.
You know, I think those are good points, and I think it's always important to ask why and what's the bigger picture.
Right.
I think with this work, what we're trying to highlight is actually what I think Laura called out, that when an individual teacher wants to use technology and they've decided it fits into their instructional practice, the model of the school, whatever, if they had to find broadband, get a computer, you know, we want the entry costs for people, for districts, for educators, districts, schools, kids, to be low. And we want to put the policies and procedures in place to make those low. While at the same time asking, is this good? Is it being, you know, we need districts to be asking that question. How does this fit? And Michelle made this point. How does this fit into our model of teaching and learning? Because if it's just a thing that we're doing, that's not helpful. Like anything else, like the old school science kits. You know, we all had the science teacher who bought some fancy kit and didn't know how to actually use it. So what good did that science manipulative or whatever do for us? Nothing. Technology can be the new manipulative if it's not embedded in an instructional model. So I think, though, it's good to ask the questions about the why, like in society, is technology good for us or bad for a society? That's interesting. What we're trying to do here is that lower the entry costs so people can use it as a tool. And I just wanted to, Tyler found us the broadband info, so I wanted to be able to share that with all of you. Can you guys actually make sure I translate that well?
This is the MCAN stuff?
So we have 122 unserved households at least 10 megabits per second download speed and 1 megabit per second upload speed, which is 3.2% of households in Michigan. At least 25 would be unserved households, 381,000, which is 9.9% of the state. And we have at least 1 gig, which would be unserved households, almost 4 million, so 3.7 at a percent unserved of 95.7. So offhand, I'm thinking the CETA targets are around that 25 megabit per second, so looking at 9.9% of households unserved. Not sure whether or not they have K-12 students. Right.
We can look into that some more, but just to give you at least a ballpark of what we're
No, that's very helpful.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tyler.
Nikki?
A number of things, so I'll just try to keep it brief. But so just to understand Go Open, so if a school district invests in Go Open, does the student download the textbook, or is it a live textbook that they can never download and print, even if they did want to print?
They can download and print, and some of our schools have a kind of a blended model where they'll have some paper copies that may go home with the students, but then when they're in school, they're able to use the applets, the mapping pieces, the historical timelines that are more interactive. So they do have a blend that you can use it either way. And in either model, you're really saving substantial funds.
But you're saving funds, but you're also spending a whole lot more on the technology, correct? I mean, technology is definitely more expensive than books.
Actually, no. If you look at a price of a Chromebook, that is actually a Chromebook for a student is cheaper than what a school would pay for multiple textbooks across all the content areas. Actually, far cheaper.
Even with maintenance costs or replacement costs.
Chromebooks on the bid are right around $100 right now. So, and they can last, depending on how they're cared for and the internal functioning, 3 to 5 years. So that's substantially cheaper than one textbook. An average textbook is about $89 a textbook for elementary, middle.
And if you're talking about high school, the average textbook at the high school is about $150.
Yeah.
See, I think from a parent's perspective, I think I've read different things where the replacement cost is much more than that, but maybe that's years ago and it's different now.
But without those collective bid pricing, and the price of technology has come down. We all know from our own technologies.
Right. So I was just thinking information-wise, just to protect information, where we used to have books, it's like we can't just say that's not what that book said, and information was something to be considered something we would want to protect and not easily change, if that makes sense. So I was just thinking from that perspective. And then just balance in general, I think this is where it gets sort of messy in terms of how much access do kids have to technology at school, at home, how much of it is purposeful, how much of it is for enjoyment and entertainment. And I just feel like I have a lot of structure in my home as it relates to that because I don't want to lose my kids to technology. Teachers don't want to lose their kids to technology. Other parents feel very similar. So I just kind of laughed when you said you're sending kids home with a hotspot. Like I walked through the door and my son's like, "Mom, can I use a hotspot?" It's like, "Hi, how are you?" And I feel like I'm wondering how that would look if schools are sending their kids home with hotspots, because I'm feeling like, are there guardrails there, and would they understand this is for your textbook? And then would that be another thing that I'm going, okay, seriously, we have to figure out more boundaries here and more structure. Because I happen to be one of the percentage of people that doesn't have good broadband. And I consider it like the last frontier of this is good, because they come home and they say, internet's not so good here, Mom. Sorry, not sorry. So I don't know, I just feel like there's some messiness here that you can work out, because technology is not necessarily bad, and then the data collection that Tom talked about, but there's definitely messiness in this, but there's also, I think, opportunity. So, and equity-wise, one last thing, it is interesting because there's inequity in books, so it feels like the gap could easily be even worsened. So I just hope that that's something we continue to consider.
Thank you, Nikki. And moving on to Lupe.
Well, I'm very pro-technology. That's the future. When my 8-year-old granddaughter helps me, because I'm not savvy to the level even of my 8-year-old, because everything is done through technology. When my tutors come, or my interns come from Grand Valley and they see my house phone, they say, "How do you work this? What is this?" The technology is the future, whether we want it or not. Now, some of the concerns, I truly appreciate all the concerns at the table. And one of the concerns was some children do not have technology in their homes. That is true. But what are we doing to remedy that? So if they have homework that requires technology, I, as a principal, started the homework house. And that was the first homework house in all of the area. And so there's many homework houses now where they have technology, they have phones, they make it available. Another place that we send students, and we work with the public libraries, and we connected our students to, they could have the computer lab at the libraries, and they would go do their homework there. Another one, we organized and founded a foundation, the Student Advancement Foundation. And we work very hard as citizens to get funding for students to have computers, for students to have instruments, for students to play sports, we, the people. And so we don't leave it up just to the school. We as individuals, as educators, as citizens, we make it possible for all students to have access to whatever we they are required to have. Technology is the future. And so we have to help our students in every way possible. And I, as a board member, if I'm not doing something to help students, and the people, like I said, thank Dr. Ziley and Eileen, I don't think any of the other board members have gone to some of the activities Sheila has, but that's what we do. I don't get paid for doing it, and I've been doing it 18 years. I'm going to my 19th year, and we have many fundraisers, nickel and dimes, until we endow endowments in different universities so students can go to school. My interns are so savvy in technology. It is just amazing, amazing, amazing to me. I could never do the work that they do in 1 minute. You know, it takes me an hour to do it, but that's the future. And all jobs require for students to know, and employees to know technology. So we have to make every possible way for them to obtain and the resources that they need. And so I applaud all the school districts that are engaged in promoting technology within the students. I'm not going to say that my students that don't speak English, that are poor, that don't have technology, I'm not going to hold them back. I'm going to provide them with opportunities in other ways. And I think in my area, we have done a tremendous job. So I'm very pro technology.
Thank you, Lupe. And if there aren't any other questions or comments from board members, we'll thank our presenters today and move on to our next item on the Committee of the Whole agenda, which is a presentation on Great Start Readiness Program. Great Start Readiness Program, otherwise known as GSRP, is Michigan's state-funded preschool for 4-year-old children with factors which may place them at risk of educational failure. This presentation provides an overview of GSRP and its contributions towards helping Michigan become a top 10 education state in 10 years. It is our custom at the final State Board of Education meeting for our state board members to honor their requests for presentations. And Eileen Weiser requested this presentation, and so we made sure that we put it on the agenda. Even though she's not here physically, we're hoping that she's either watching us live stream or will catch the video of today's program. Joining us at the table, we have Deputy Superintendent Scott Kenischek, Director Richard Lauer of Preschool and Out-of-School Learning Time, and Pat Sargent, our Great Start Readiness Program Manager. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
And coming around is a PowerPoint presentation.
And good morning again, all. As Sheila had said, I'm joined by Richard Lauer and Pat Sargent, and we are going to give you kind of the state of GSRP. And it's a great time to be in early childhood. We have an outgoing administration who's invested in the GSRP programming. We have an incoming administration who has signaled continued investment. So it's exciting for us on the GSRP front. And so I'm going to turn it over to Richard and Pat to give us our state of the state.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting us to present on GSRP. We are a program that believes and tells the people that work with us in the field that we believe strongly in continuous quality improvement. And this announcement in 2017 showed our own commitment to continuous quality improvement. The National Institute for Early Education Research at Rutgers University produces an annual state of preschool report looking at state-funded preschool across the country in terms of pre-K investment and the meeting of quality standards. We were very proud in 2017 to be able to be one of 3 states that met all 10 of the new quality standards. We had been at 9 for a number of years and worked hard to finally meet 10 of 10. To the right, you can see some of the standards that were involved in making that possible. Our program, the programs are looked at in terms of comprehensiveness, staff qualifications, ratios, group sizes, and also one of the newer, more important pieces people are beginning to see is the support for classrooms and classroom teachers of coaches. Ours are called early childhood specialists, and we have one for each classroom. What is the Great Start Readiness Program? We're funded in the State Aid Act, and we began as a pilot in 1985 with $1 million. In 2017-18, we provided Great Start Readiness Program classrooms to over 37,000 children with $233,600,000 for programming and a set aside of $10 million to make sure the children get to the program to take advantage of it. We provide a high quality preschool experience by awarding dollars to our ISDs across the state who work either alone or in consortium with other ISDs to provide the program. 70% of the children receive the program within LEAs and PSAs, while 30% attend in child care centers, Head Start programs, universities, a number of types of community-based organizations. At this point in time, 10% of the children attend a part-day program, minimally 3 hours a day, while 90%, either funded by GSRP exclusively or GSRP and Head Start working together to provide a blended classroom, have their classrooms are attending in, 90% are attending in full-day classrooms. These are the same length of day as the local first grade. Who attends GSRP? Children who are both age eligible and income eligible. The majority of our children turn 4 by September 1st of the school year of attendance, in kind of mirroring the kindergarten waiver process. Children who are born between September 2nd and December 1st, who have parents who request a waiver, also may attend. The difference between GSRP and kindergarten, since GSRP has a finite amount of funding for the children who attend, is those children are not admitted until September 1st, so that we reach the majority of children who only have the opportunity for 1 year of preschool and are eligible before the children who are a little bit younger and could potentially receive 2 years. Our families are mostly live at 250% of the federal poverty level and below. There is a special provision in the GSRP portion of the State School Aid Act that deems children who are experiencing homelessness, who are living in foster care, or who have an IEP that recommends inclusion in or attendance in an inclusive preschool program be considered among the lowest income children. So they are admitted early in the process. The children are divided. They are enrolling over the course of months or applying for enrollment. They are divided within 5 income quintiles from 0 to 250% of the FPL. And then once the governor signs the state aid act and they are beginning to be enrolled, it's done according to the children most in need receiving enrollment first and proceeds. If there is space, some children, up to 10% of the children may be over income, and those families pay a modest tuition based on a sliding fee scale. As you can see, funding has gone up over most of the years. The number of children served has gone up over most of the years. The little lightning strikes at the bottom represent things that were significant in policy that affects enrollment of GSRP children. We have had some rough times back when we had both formula and competitive funding, when our competitive program was cut in half for a year. Our formula programs, our LEA programs, were allowed to divert GSRP money into their K-12 programs for a year. So our number of children served dipped that year, although many of them tried very hard to hang on to still providing GSRP. You can see that in 2013-14, we had the first of the 2 years of growth, huge expansion, that we thank Governor Snyder for. We received $65 million in each of those 2 years. Mostly it went to increasing access. In 13-14, there was also a raise to the per child amount that the programs operate on. We're asked periodically, and a lot recently it seems, how many children are still, what's the remaining need for GSRP? So statewide, we have numbers from the American Community Survey that tell us we have 67,200 eligible children. For programs across the country that provide universal pre-K, we have learned that about 80% of families who could have preschool take it. So we have used that figure to estimate remaining need. We know that all families would not come to GSRP, even though it's a wonderful program because they have other reasons and other needs. So if you look at 80% uptake of the program if offered, it leaves us a little over 53,000. And once we subtract the children who are receiving GSRP, receiving the GSRP Head Start plan, or currently receiving Head Start itself, it leaves about 9,500 children who still are within age and income eligibility for the program. If that were funded, it would take a little over, or close to $67 million. A topic that we are hearing more and more of from the field is not only the desire to have more, to increase access and serve more children, but a growing concern about maintaining the high quality of the program with funding per child that doesn't increase very often, and when it does, not very much. And this has always been an issue, but it's starting to become a crisis. They're getting to a crisis point. You can see in this slide that from 1994-95 to 17-18, you can see the amount of growth, the percentage of growth that K-12 funding went through. You can also see the percentage of growth. $3,400 or $3,000 in 94-95, and only $36.25 in 17-18, that GSRP funding per child has not grown at a pace that even keeps pace with inflation. We have heard some LEAs are actually looking to their ISDs and saying, you provide the program, and maybe if you do it, there's a way to do it more efficiently and stretch the dollars because we're becoming desperate. The Gsrp model is looked at as one of high quality by not only NEAR, but our colleagues across the country. We get lots of questions from them about our model. It's based on the early childhood standards of quality that were adopted here by the board, which not only gave us standards, program standards, but expectations for children's learning too. We monitor the program from our staff here, monitoring the ISDs in terms of program, but also fiscal compliance, and we have expectations that the ISDs do the same in working with their local programs. Structure of the classroom is most classrooms have 16 children and 2 staff. They can have a maximum of 18, but they have to add a third staff to do that because of the ratio that's been set for the program. The programs meet at least 30 weeks at 4 days a week of teacher contact time. So most of them are really scheduled for about 34, 36 weeks to account for breaks and holidays. We saw before that about 10% of the children now are attending in a part-day program. That's 3 hours a day. The majority of children now attend a school day Gsrp or Gsrp Head Start blend, which gives them a school day length program, and that's defined as the length of the local first grade. Staff are well qualified. Our lead teachers, we have teaching teams in each classroom. Our lead teachers are certified with an early childhood endorsement or have bachelor's degrees in early childhood education or child development with a concentration in preschool teaching. Our associate teachers have associate's degrees in early childhood education or child development, or they hold a national credential called the Child Development Associate Credential. This slide reflects the percentage of children in the 3 program options: Part Day, Gsrp Head Start Blend, and Gsrp School Day. You can see where Gsrp School Day came into effect after 100% of the students attended for years in a Part Day model. And then the Part Day began to decline while school day attendance started to go up. And that's for several reasons. One, school day better meets family need. 2, kindergarten went to full day, so the transportation at midday became a real issue. But 3, it also gives our children most in need a higher dosage of the program. And we feel that's important to meeting our top 10 in 10 goals and in reducing the achievement gap. All programs, children go through developmental screening early in the year, and sometimes we're able to catch some special needs that haven't been caught before and make referrals. Our curricula programs have choice between a list where all the curricula on the list are comprehensive, they're research-based, and the same is true of our child assessment tools. Research-based, comprehensive, they're ongoing authentic assessment. We don't test so much as we observe and record the growth of the children. Gsrp programs all involve families in the program. Families have 2 home visits each year, 2 parent-teacher conferences, times when parents can share their goals for their children, review what they're seeing in terms of the growth of their children, hear from the teaching team. They will share the results of the authentic assessment with the parents during those times. Parents are also invited to participate in a number of ways: volunteering in the classroom, attending literacy events at night, being on policy-type committees that help make decisions for the program. So that's an important piece. One of the most important things, as I mentioned before, is that all classrooms have the support of a classroom coach, the early childhood specialist. And that can range from short visits and emails and calls with more teams with more experience, to weekly visits, modeling, all kinds of supporting, helping with PD with new and inexperienced teachers. And we tend to have a fairly consistent set of new teachers for our coaches to work with. So that is a real piece of strength within our program. All programs have quality assessments yearly. For years, we've used the internationally known but Michigan developed by the High Scope Research Foundation Program Quality Assessment. This year, the Program Quality Assessment Revised has come out, and so we will be moving toward that as one of our choices for program assessment. And we've also added the class. All three of these tools look at a number of things, but the most important, or among the most important things they look at, are the quality of teacher-child interactions within the classroom. Incredibly important for all students, very much true for young students, and particularly true for young children at risk, that they develop strong relationships with their teachers. These are the choices we have for child assessment currently. 97% of the programs choose the first two: My Teaching Strategies and Child Observation, and the Child Observation Record. They are used across the country and actually in many ways, or in places worldwide. And again, we try to do the background work on looking at having high quality choices, but we make sure that our programs have choice among what works for them locally. Our comprehensive curricula currently, we have a list there. Again, probably the majority of programs at this point are probably using creative curriculum and high scope, with the others, with, I would say, Connect for Learning growing in its use. Gsrp curriculum is comprehensive because we don't have math time and reading time and social studies time and separate curricula. It's all embedded within the comprehensive curriculum. In the last few years, one of the things that we've been happy to have to support our classrooms with and grow with has been the essentials for early literacy for pre-K. All of our teachers had the opportunity to be exposed to the essentials in some full-day PD sessions we did in 16-17, and many of the ISDs have hosted presentations. And this year, we're happy with part of the end funding of Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge funds. We've been able to fund training of trainers with the early childhood essentials. Going on in 3 places around the state, 4-day training, happening right now. In fact, one of our consultants, Michelle McManus, is at one of the trainings today. This was developed in partnership with MESA and CC RISA, who does some support work for us. And at the end, we will have a cadre of 300 trained trainers who will not only, and the people going through the training and where the training will happen afterward is not just Gsrp. It's Gsrp, it's Head Start, it's child care centers, and all of those people had the opportunity to become a part of the trained trainer group, but had to agree that they will go out and do the training and share with 10 at least?
At least.
At least 10 entities afterwards. So this helps us spread not only the training to every GSRP classroom and Head Start classroom, but to reach into childcare centers around the state too, who don't always have access to some of the training we do.
Dr. Z has a quick question, so if we may please interrupt Pat.
How many hours of training did this represent?
I think it's 4 7-hour days.
Mm-hmm. So 20.
About 28 hours?
Yep.
28 hours.
Okay, thank you.
And at this point, I've given you some background on the program itself, and Richard's going to talk about the impact of the program.
Sure. So we want to start with giving you a real foundation of some of the key policy aspects in the real core model of what GSRP is over the last 33 years of its existence. What I want to share with you is just a quick reminder of one of the key things that the state legislature funded was a longitudinal study, and I apologize for my voice, a longitudinal study from 1995 to 2011. And Dr. Larry Schweine came before the board in 2012 to show you the longitudinal outcomes of following a cohort of about 595 children, as you can see, of the longitudinally who received GSRP in a quasi-experimental design study through graduation plus 2 years for those who were retained as some of the studies. Not only at kindergarten entry were there some more qualitative assessments of those children in terms of their of the teachers, but more importantly, as we moved through the upper elementary grades and on through the grades through 12th grade, you can see in terms of their performance related to the MEP at that time, in terms of being able to, of their performance on higher percentage of GSRP students versus non-GSRP students passing the MEP, those of color performing better on the MEP. But then in terms of those who were retained in grade, fewer GSRP students compared to their peers being retained in grade. Again, the impact from GSRP compared to their counterparts had a greater impact on children of color. Graduation on time had greater impact there. Again, disproportionately greater impact on children of color. So given that GSRP really is a targeted program for children at risk, it has shown to have even a greater impact on children of color, and more recent results have shown children who are dual language learners, and I'll get to that in a minute. So we did not, as you saw early on, GSRP has been funded early on at about $100,000 for the first couple years. Recent years, the legislature has been giving $300,000 in general fund to continue ongoing evaluation of GSRP. That $300,000 pays for continued evaluation. High Scope Educational Research Foundation did that original study. It continued to do some studies from 2011 on through 2016. We did a competitive grant competition, and Michigan State University was the successful grantee. We transitioned the grant in 2017. So as we continue to talk through these next couple slides, be aware that some of this data is from High Scope still, and as I move to the end, we'll be switching to where MSU is going to take the studies into the future. So what I'm going to show you here is still High Scope and their research on GSRP. And then I'm also going to show you, because I believe that's the third point, what I think is important to understand is that as over the last 3 or 4 years in particular, there's been questions, in particular from the legislature, to say, we're used to population level data, like we report in K-12. We like population statistics. We like M-STEP results. So why can't we have this for GSRP? Well, MSU is going to help us in the future for that, but what can we do now? Well, that's where STEPI has SEPI has stepped in to help us. And that is where we're going to touch on a little bit where SEPI has stepped in. And also NEAR. Not only do they do the national yearbook across the country, but they also do some specific studies and meta-analysis on state preschool programs that do evaluation work. And so what's exciting is that we have 3 separate research-based hubs doing research on state pre-K. Gsrp is involved in all 3, and all 3 independently corroborate similar results for Gsrp, and that's exciting here. Oops, let me see, yep. So I'll start here in terms of at that level, at the national level with NEAR. In April of this year, and this was in a board brief back earlier this year, NEAR released in the American Education and Research Association's journal one of their studies, which is a meta-analysis of 8 state programs. Michigan was one of those 8 states. And you can see with the main research question, what are the impacts of these states on language literacy and math? Excitingly, you can see in terms of Michigan where we stand on effect sizes for literacy. Michigan's right up there along with, you can see also California has 2, there's some nuances with their data, so they're counted twice in there. But you can see Michigan is right up there with effect sizes of 1+, 1.36, 1.34 at 6 months and 12 months, meaning mid-year and end of year. So very exciting to see where Michigan stands on impact on literacy. This in particular is something to be proud of. Most states do not think about their impacts on math, early mathematics. And this is something that I and Pat are very proud that our comprehensive curricula approach and the ones that are aligned to the state board adopted standards of quality, we ensure our curricula are aligned to your state board standards that you have adopted, and they promote math as one of the core areas that aligns with the rest of the Michigan standards that you adopted K-12. We get this type of result because of that, from my opinion. That's not so. Many other states focus on some domains rather than all domains, and I think this is a result of that. Back to SEPI and what they've done. Back in fall 16, former Representative Amanda Price asked, again, about that population data piece. Okay, you can give us studies, you can give us research, rigorous, randomized quasi-experimental studies. We have national studies. Well, what does that look like? What does Gsrp kids in Michigan statewide look like? And so because this is not something that's readily available, SEPI had to do a specialized data poll, put together a report, and it was given to the House members. This is in terms of thinking about Gsrp kids, again, 250% poverty and below. It's a targeted program for at-risk children. Who is the appropriate group to compare these children to statewide? Children who are economically disadvantaged, so that we have a comparison group that's appropriate. You can't compare them to the whole statewide population, but you can apply them to economically disadvantaged kids across the whole state. So SEPI, in their explanation in the report to the House side of the legislature, explains this in their methodology. And what you can see there on math is blue, ELA is red. Children with no Gsrp versus children who had the Gsrp program on their M-STEP results at 3rd grade. You can see the children with Gsrp not only performed at, but exceeded performance of their peers. Now, economically disadvantaged children are those who are defined as those receiving free or reduced lunch. So granted, Gsrp kids are a little bit higher at 250 than as defined through SEPI. I understand that, but it's the closest proxy group that CEPI could produce. But it's definitely a closer proxy group than the whole population with no income cap. So I wanted to show you this. The next one is, again, broken down by the three main that CEPI produces around race. Again, this is ELA specifically, tells the same story in terms of GSRP children within the three categories here around African American, Hispanic, and white, performing at or beyond their peers of economically disadvantaged, and again, in math. So one thing that has occurred, again, with the resources of Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge on the other side of Office of Great Start, one thing that has occurred over the last year is that we've worked with CEPI to actually embed the capabilities of this type of data in a routine report. So it's not a special report that they can produce. The report was finished the capabilities of the report was finished on Friday. Unfortunately, I couldn't update this by today. The other thing is our access, my access, although signed off on, it wasn't pushed through by today. So I couldn't actually produce the report, Scott, sorry, to give you a hot off the press update of 2017-18 data. I can provide it in a future board brief to you so that I can produce these results in updated data, since these are 15-16 results. I don't anticipate that they're going to go in any other direction but mimic these or continue to showcase GSRP's influence in these areas. Again, from the GSRP funded evaluation by the legislature, the evidence of GSRP impact on literacy and math, given the importance of the Read by Grade 3 law and where we are with the importance of the top 10 and 10 goals and the emphasis, the continued efforts from 2012 through 2017, GSRP continues to, every analysis done on the data, we've done it in a couple different studies in the Lansing School District. We've done repeated studies in the Thumb area in 3 ISDs of the Tuscola, Bay Aranac area, ISDs of the Thumb area. They corroborated the findings of the longitudinal study and moved forward. And then we also repeated in Kent ISD, and we were able, because of the prevalence of the Spanish-speaking population in Grand Rapids area in particular, we were able to actually do most of the assessment with a Spanish-speaking population, which gave us ability to have data collection in their native language, which gave us capability of doing some, again, dual language learner outcome studies, and gave us an ability to do analysis to say we have disproportionate outcomes with children who are Spanish speakers. So not only do we get ELA, English literacy results, disproportionately positive, but GSRP has a disproportionate positive impact on children who English is not their first language. And that's very exciting to understand as we continue to grow our knowledge about the impact of GSRP and who we should be targeting this program to if it does not eventually become universal in the next administration. GSRP also, in terms of reducing achievement gap, that's some of the data I showed you from CEPI. What's next? Again, MSU has become the new evaluator. Over this last year, we've gone through a lot of data sharing agreements with CEPI and refined, there's been a couple new data privacy laws put into place by the legislature that got enacted for implementation in 2017. Had to work through all that. There are 4 studies, big main studies that are proposed over the next 4 years, and we're going to be working on the accessibility study using mapping statistics to really understand where there are, deserts for preschool around the state, where we need to really be conscious as an Office of Great Start to really coordinate GSRP and other early childhood programs. The second one is more traditional along with a third bullet around quality in preschool outcomes and academic. Those are more akin to what I've been showing you. But also number 4, the fourth bullet, economic impact. This is exciting as well. We've done a little bit in the past, but nothing truly focused on what is the true cost of GSRP. We've showed you some information about GSRP's costs. Pat indicated ISDs have been sharing anecdotally about we're in crisis mode related to inflationary adjustments. But what is the true cost of GSRP? We understand that the fiscal study that came out earlier this year by the schools said that early childhood should be funded at $14,500 for a school day. You know, K-12, $9,000, some $100. But what is the true cost of quality? And so these are studies yet to come. I put on the website at MSU that you can get real detail about each of these studies on there if you are so inclined, our contact information and more about GSRP. But this is important to say thank you. Pat and I truly appreciate the board's past support, Eileen's past support, Richard's past support in particular. And this goes beyond GSRP to all of our early childhood. In particular, we've had a NASB grant since 2016 on early childhood workforce that Eileen's been a part of. Richard helped to get us refunded over this year for 18-19. I truly appreciate that since I'm leading that work too. And so I do thank you in terms of not only GSRP wouldn't be what it is today, but the continued growth of early care and education out of this department. Open for questions.
All right, thank you, Scott and Richard and Pat for a very thorough and comprehensive presentation on GSRP. And now we will open it up to comments or questions from board members. Dr. Z?
On page 13, you've got the comparison of GSRP with students that don't have GSRP, and the percentage differences seems to be around 4%. And you admit that not all the students in the GSRP are economically advantaged. So if you have just 4% who are not economically advantaged, then that would account for the 4% difference here. So this doesn't strike me as particularly convincing. Maybe there's more to it than I understand, but if we look at the let me see, it seemed that there was a 13% difference. Oh yes, that was back on page 10. Yeah, the differences here seem to be about 13%. This was grade retention for the most part.
Dr. Z, we have a different format.
Yeah,
Ours is single page. I know you have more slides per page.
Yeah, okay,
So,
all right.
I'm not sure which one you're looking.
Oh, I see. All right. The 13% differences were on page 19. Or panel 19, it's in the lower right-hand.
Great, yep, panel 19.
Yeah, okay. And so and you mentioned that the student, we estimate that we're reaching about 3/4 of the students of need. There's another quarter of our students in need. So I guess it seems to me the program has covered 3/4 of the need. I don't see the grounds to expect that this will be a game changer in our overall academic improvement. I mean, it might be a part of, it might be 14% of the solution, but I don't know. I'm am I missing something here? I guess that's what I'm, as I think aloud about this.
When you refer to the 13 or 14% specifically, can you help me find that on the slide 19?
On slide 19, the differences between the non-GSRP students between second and 12th grades was 36.5% versus 49.2%. And that's roughly 13% difference.
That's the retention piece.
Yeah.
Retain,
The next
right.
one, you had retained for 2 or more, you had 14% versus 28%. So again, that's a difference of about 14%. Graduated from high school, you're 58 and 43, that's 15% difference. Non-GSRP students of color graduate on time, you got 59 versus 36. So yeah, it seems to be an average of around 13% difference, and that's significant. Okay. But there's only another quarter of the students that need to be reached. So it doesn't. So it's going to make again, not to say that 4% isn't important, but it is a 4% difference rather than sometimes one hears preschool held out as the game changer.
I see what you're saying.
And so I'm looking for perspective on these. Now, on the other page was page 25. Okay.
Slide 25.
Slide 25, I guess.
Okay.
Economically disadvantaged, proficient, and advanced proficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a 4% difference, and you admit that the GSRP includes students that are not economically disadvantaged. So if only 4% of those students in the GSRP are not economically disadvantaged, well, then your real statistical difference between your measure of what difference the program made evaporates. And even if that's not the case, 4% doesn't strike me as being as I mean, it's
I believe
marginal.
GSRP children are economically disadvantaged. They're just at a different threshold of poverty level than the children on the left.
Okay.
So GSRP is at 250% of the federal poverty level, whereas CEPI defines economically disadvantaged at free and reduced lunch, which is equivalent to 185%. So
More at risk in this category.
Yeah, potentially more at risk.
Okay.
So I'm sorry if I misspoke that earlier.
So the measures are,
The measures are not identical.
Yeah.
That is correct. But it's the closest proxy CEPI could provide, rather than comparing GSRP children to the full total population of students across the state.
Okay. What is that comparison between GSRP and all students across the state?
They did not produce that comparison, and so I do not have that.
So in other words, all the students across the state were not tested?
Oh, no, these are M-STEP scores, so they are tested.
Okay.
But they did not produce the report. CEPI did not produce the report in fall of 16 that compared GSRP against all students.
Okay.
However, we do have that data available.
We do have it now, we just need to have access to it, which will happen within a week or so, probably this week. And then we can
provide that data.
that would be a new comparison on the drop-downs, and we could possibly do that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other board members? Yes?
I just wanted to thank you for your work and how thorough it is. And I understand Richard's point, but I do think that these are some pretty impressive statistics that shows, some positive signs of where we need to go, and that we need greater investment in GSRP, and we need to have more people be able to have access to quality childcare. And and early education. So, so that's it. I just wanted to let it be known that I respect what Richard says, but I have a different point of view, and I think it needs to be expanded and more fully funded, and we need to have better paid people working there so the turnover isn't so high and all that kind of stuff. So, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Seeing no other comments or questions from board, thank you very much for your presentation today, and we will move on to our next presentation, which is on students attending schools outside their borders. This presentation was requested by Dr. Z. Eileen requested the previous presentation, Dr. Z has requested this presentation for his final State Board of Ed meeting. We have Joshua Cowan from Michigan State University College of Education, who will present results of the recent research related to Michigan students who attend school outside of the boundaries of their district of residence. This research was conducted by the Education Policy Innovation Collaborative, that is a partner in the recently launched Michigan Education Research Institute. Joining us at the table today is Vanessa Kiesler as well as Joshua Cowan. Welcome.
Thank you, Sheila. Before Josh gets started, like Sheila said, you had the opportunity to meet Catherine Strunk, Josh's co-director at EPIC at the June board meeting. And so Josh is the co-director of EPIC at MSU as part of our Michigan Education Research Initiative work. This work actually predates that formal partnership. I think about 3 years ago, Josh was at MSU and said, what are you really interested in knowing more about? Thank you. And I said, we have all this data on where our students are going, charters, choice, interdistrict choice. We have a lot of assumptions about those data, but we don't have anybody really looking at it in the way that I think we need to. And so when Dr. Ziley asked if we could have a presentation on this topic, it was one of those fortuitous moments that you hope for when you forge these partnerships where someone will be interested in the results of something we've been working on. Right. So I'm going to turn over to Josh. Again, the reason we really ask him to do this work is that it's important to have independent work done in these data about topics like all topics. Independent research helps us make better, be better informed and potentially make better policy decisions. So, Josh?
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here and happy to both share some of what we're seeing with you and take any questions that you have. So thanks again for giving me the time today. Before I kind of launch into some of the specifics, just a little bit of context as well to follow up from what Dr. Kiesler was saying. I have been working on school choice evaluations of various sorts across the country for more than a decade. And when I first came to Michigan, we have a very sort of interesting and intersecting set of school choice policies, but we still don't know a whole lot about sort of how they're working and what's actually happening in the ground. And so this is actually coming at a really interesting crossroads where we've been doing some work for a few years now, as Dr. Kiesler described, and then we're also moving forward into some new sets of research questions that are funded largely by the Institute for Education Science at the U.S. Department of Ed. So in some sense, the feedback that you give me today is going to be internalized, and hopefully I can come back and tell you what else we know next year or the year after. So with that background, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about sort of what the data that are telling us so far from examining choice in Michigan. I have a set of research questions that are listed on the board, and this is what I'd like to sort of try to talk with you about today. The first is just a bird's eye view of who's using school choice in Michigan. The second is, how do students who are using school choice differ from those who are remaining in their resident districts? The next question we're going to ask is, how many years does a choice student use choice? This is a really important question because what we see when we look at students across the country, we think of choice sometimes, particularly in the debate over various aspects of choice, as kind of a fixed or permanent condition. One chooses and then that's it, or they don't choose and that's it. And as it turns out, particularly for subpopulations, choice is a more dynamic process that individual parents make every single year or over the course of many years of a child's education. So it's important to sort of understand how long are they choosing, at least in Michigan. And then the the question everybody wants to know, which is how does achievement differ before and after a student uses choice? I phrase that very deliberately in this context because of all the things we know about school choice in Michigan, we probably know the least about this last question. And it's an area that I will sort of tell you what we seem to know, and I'll give you some numbers, but I'm not going to be able to tell you today sort of that the differences we do see in student outcomes are driven largely or even primarily by the school choice that they're participating in. But I can give you some raw numbers, and then we'll keep moving forward to try to kind of ask a more causal variation of that question over the next couple of years. Just a couple of sort of sets of data and definitions so that we're all sort of on the same page about what we're talking about. The numbers that I'm going to be looking at come from student level data as part of our partnership at Mary. So these are CEPI data on individual students, not at the aggregate school level. And that's important because the data on the individual students that we are studying via this partnership, we're able to do things like really understand where individual students are going instead of kind of just looking at percentage changes at the district level. And finding out where they're going is very important to what we're trying to do, and to, in particular, answering the questions that I raised with you a second ago. So resident districts, when we're talking about resident districts today, we're just talking about students attending school in their district of home residence, where they are physically, geographically located, where they go to sleep every night. That's determined by just what their address is. What we've done is geocode those addresses to the census block, so we can sort of tell differences in the neighborhoods that these families are coming in and out of and staying in. Non-resident districts are just the flip side of that. These would be students, in our case, who are attending any LEA outside of their resident district. These would be students not limited to just schools of choice, sort of as it's formally defined by legislation, but also individual choice cooperatives that individual ISDs and districts might make. So in our case, we're just putting them all together and saying, if you're a kid who's attending a sort of a traditionally organized school in an LEA outside your home district, we're calling you a non-resident student today. And then there are the charter students attending public school academies, regardless of where that location actually is. So those are our definitions. And so this first question, who uses school choice in Michigan? About 22% of students in Michigan attend schools which they're not neighborhood zoned. So these are our best guess at who the active choosers in the state are. About 11% of those are going to through some form of either choice sharing cooperative at the local level or through schools of choice, and another 9 to 10% are going to the state's PSAs.
I'm gonna back Josh up one and say this. Oopsie, now I'm stealing all his thunder. This number is actually why I asked Josh to look into this more. I feel like when we talk about choice in Michigan, we often talk about charters, but as you can see here, there's actually more students exercising choice through some sort of schools of choice arrangement than they are through charters alone, totaling to 22%. But I think that's important when we talk about where students are going, why they're going, and what's happening, that there's two kind of mechanisms operating that allow that to happen. So that's part of our policy environment here in Michigan.
That's a very good point, and they're different students, as I'm going to show you. Yeah.
And Dr. Kiesler and Cohen, just so I'm clear, I missed this when you were first giving the definition. So when you say non-resident district, you mean it's a different LEA, but it's not outside of their boundaries, not outside of their neighborhood.
Well, so this would be, say, I live in Lansing and I attend school in Okemos.
Okay, yeah, that's okay.
Sorry, Josh. I'll let you
No, that's
what
fine.
you were doing.
So and this is a little bit hard to see kind of at the very detailed level, but I think even just from a step back, you can sort of see the key point of this map is that choice is exercised all over the state. The darker the districts, the greater the percentage of students who live in that district are attending something else. So the picture on the left, the darker green are telling you that those districts are sending, as it were, the greatest percentage of their kids living within them to charter school. Okay? And the slide on the right, same thing, except instead of charter, these are your kids going to resident districts nearby, non-resident districts nearby. So the darker the shades of green, a greater share of the students are going to a neighboring district. And you can see, particularly with the right-hand picture, there's a lot of choice all over the place in places that are considered fairly rural communities in Michigan. That's true for the PSAs, but you can see that dark sort of southeast corner, that's where a lot of our charter kids are coming from, in the Detroit area and the Tri-County area.
Hard for my eyes to acclimate to that because it's not county. So
I understand, yeah. And that's actually important feedback for us, because the way we've been organizing, we do a lot of this kind of mapping over at Epic, and the way we've been doing this so far is at the geographic boundary associated with the districts. But we've actually been hearing that that county level information might be easier, and we can do that just as easily as well.
I would like to see that, and I'm sorry, but maybe another map that kind of helps us to know where it sets within.
No, that's helpful.
So from one perspective, each of these map, the darker the section, the more loss of students to the local district.
From that perspective, yes, but it's the proportion, it's not the number of kids,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Right. That's right. So students who are exercising choice are, generally speaking, if we see observable differences in the demographics, they're more likely to be African-American students, they're more likely to be economically disadvantaged. As we're going to see, that's partly a function of, in some cases, where they're living. But this is particularly true for charter users, as you can see. So the way to read this is 51% of charter users in Michigan are African-American, okay? 73% are economically disadvantaged. Compare that to 71% of white students are attending their resident TPS, their resident district. Now, the story is still the same, but it's a little less stark when you exclude Detroit. Okay. So this is including Detroit, and this is excluding Detroit. It's still true that these are disproportionately economically disadvantaged and students of color, but it's not as true.
What year is this?
What was that? Question was, what year is this data?
These are overall years, since 2012 and 13 through 16, 17.
So averaged.
Yeah, averaged across those years, yeah. Okay, so that's just sort of in general. So that's comparing sort of choosers and non-choosers statewide. But in some sense, you might think that the more important question is, how do choosers differ from the kids they live nearby? So that's my next question, is how do students who use choice differ from those who are remaining in their resident district? All of these comparisons are relative to the kids you're living near. Now, this is kind of hard to look at, and I'm gonna try to change this out in the future and sort of think about better ways to present this. But the way to think about this is the greater number of districts, each circle represents a district in Michigan, and the larger the circle, the more kids live in that district. So that really big circle in the top right corner, that's Detroit. Okay? And the way to look at this is every circle over the red line, that's a district that has a greater percentage of its kids going to charter schools that fall on this particular measure. So in this instance, because you see sort of an equal number of districts on either side of the line, the conclusion is charters don't clearly serve more or less economically disadvantaged students relative to the district that the charter is located in geographically. Okay? On the other hand, for those that are attending a non-resident district, they're leaving the district to attend somewhere nearby, they're slightly less likely to be disadvantaged than the kids living in their community that stay in the resident district. Black students are more likely to use charter, particularly where more students are white. So you see this sort of disproportionate clustering above the red line. What that means is that for districts that have larger and larger percentages of African-American students, or smaller and smaller percentages of African-American students, really is what's on this graph, there are more and more kids leaving those districts to go to charter schools. Flip side is, African-American students in predominantly black districts are less likely to go to neighboring districts. So the conclusion is that when they leave their district, they tend to be more likely to go to a charter school, not to a neighboring school, in predominantly black districts. White students in predominantly white districts are less likely to attend charter schools. You see disproportionate clustering below the red line in this case. That's what the story is. On the other hand, white students are more likely to use interdistrict choice to attend a neighboring district that they don't live in when they are a minority in their resident district. The greater the share of African American or Hispanic students, the better the chance that an individual white student leaves that district to go to a neighboring district.
Is it assumed that if they're not white, they're African American?
In this case, it's non-white. It's just white versus
Could be
non-white.
Indian, like in
They could, yes.
in Hamtramck, but, okay. good.
That's right. Good clarification. Thank you. Okay. How many years does a student actually use choice? This actually has, it's not on the slide, this actually has changed a little bit over time. They've become a little more what I would call stable in their choice environment. So a few years ago, when Dr. Kiesler and I started asking questions like this, more and more kids were leaving, and they were leaving more frequently. That's actually changed a little bit over the last 2 to 3 years.
I have a question to the previous slide, or slides. Did you show where charter schools are located? Because you said that white students are less likely to go to charter schools.
So in this instance, so a greater, the Detroit area accounts for something like 35 to 40% of the state's charter schools, and I don't have that exact number in front of me, charter students. In some sense, though, so these pictures up here, these graphs, these are not really considering where they're located. These are just kind of statewide. But these pictures inherently are, because the comparison is to the kids in your own district who are staying put.
Well, you said that the white students are running away from their schools that are in their district if they're mostly non-white students.
What I'm saying is that the greater the percentage of non-white students, the higher the probability that an individual white student leaves that district.
Right, that's what I was just saying.
But the comparison is to the local community.
So, and then you also said that the less likely that they are to go to charter schools, non-whites are to go to charter schools, but it was the flip for African Americans. I'm just wondering, where are those charter schools located? Are they in those districts, or do we know where they're located?
Oh, I see your question.
Yeah. Did you geocode to the charter schools?
We did
based on
not
resident
geocode.
address?
This is based on where the kid lives, not where the school is in this instance. So it's possible some of the kids leaving for charter schools are leaving for charter schools that are outside the resident district's boundaries. That's
Or
possible.
in the resident district boundaries.
That's right.
It's just, we can add that to the things
That's
we
right.
look at,
We
but
can.
charters don't have the same kind of geocode concept, so we didn't think about it.
And we do, that's right, and we do have that available, and we did do it in Detroit. So in Detroit, something like 45% of the kids who leave, who are not going to a DPSCD school, are going to a charter school located in the geographic boundary of the city. 20% of kids that live in Detroit go to school every day outside of Detroit, and 2/3 of those kids are attending charter schools. So one of the things that's, sorry, if you go way back here, you'll notice that it's actually fairly a lighter color on the right side in the Tri-County area. That's because the vast majority of kids choosing in that area are actually going to charter schools as opposed to non-resident districts. And you can see sort of how the comparison of the same geographic area on the left side of the map, it's a darker shaded green, but that's because they're going to charter schools. Okay. So on average, about 3.5 years out of 5, a kid is staying in a choice environment. What we did here was, because we wanted to kind of try to net out, say, structural moves when a kid grades out of a class, because that's hard to get at, and we do know a lot of choice occurs at, say, the period between 5th and 6th grade, for example, or 8th and 9th grade. So we wanted to sort of say, let's think about a kid that would normally be in the same school if they're staying in their resident school over time, and what's the comparison to that? So what we did is, in these data, we are able to track several cohorts of kids from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. So this is just focusing on K through 5 kids. For K through 5 kids in Michigan, for those that are not attending their resident district, they're either attending a charter or they're attending a non-resident LEA, about 3 to 3.5 or so of the years of elementary school are in that choice environment, and 1 to 1.5 are in their non-resident district.
Does that mean they're staying in the same school, or they could be moving from school to school, just not in their district?
That's a good question. We can do that, and I just haven't looked at whether the within school mobility. What I can tell you, and there's a slide in a second, is that when they leave a charter school or when they leave the non-resident district, they go back to their resident district to attend school there almost always. So they're not going from charter to charter necessarily.
Bridge Magazine just worked on this mobility
Yeah.
study. Is that data similar to the data that you're looking at?
It's similar, and we've looked at some of those similar questions. So the numbers reported out by the Bridge piece were with some counterparts at Wayne State who are looking at within Detroit mobility patterns. What we're doing is a little different. We're looking at within Detroit mobility patterns, but part of this Mary partnership is that we actually are following kids across boundaries, which is important in this context because so many of the choosers are crossing boundaries, and you can't observe that if you're just looking at one district like the DPSCD. This is just looking at the total number of kids in one of these sectors over time. So in 2012, for the people who were in a charter school in 2012, increasingly smaller numbers of those same kids were in a charter sector for all 5 years. And the same story is true if they're non-resident kids. Those numbers, 3 out of 5, were closer to like 2.5 out of 5, or even 2 out of 5 for charter kids 5 or 6 years ago. And 5 or 6 years ago, we actually saw demographic differences in how long kids stay. Haven't totally finalized these numbers yet, but we're starting to see those demographic differences going away. So 5 or 6 years ago, it looked like economically disadvantaged kids in particular were a lot more mobile between these choice environments. If they didn't stay 4 or 5 years, they stayed 1 or 2. That's less true now. For the most part, people are in, and 3 is about the number of years that a kid stays in elementary school in one of these 2 choice environments, regardless of the demographics we can see in the administrative data. And as I mentioned before, those who exit return to their resident district for the most part. So of all kids choosing a charter school in 2012, 88% were still there the next year, 79% the year after, 72%, and then 67% in 2016, 17. And you can see where they were going back home, or back to their home district for the most part. Story is similar here for the non-resident choosers.
Is this usually after K through 5 that they go back to their home district?
These are just K through 5 kids. Okay. And again, we did that. We can look through the course of their careers, but the main reason is it's really hard to disentangle that move from 5th to 6th grade. It's hard to think, is that a choice? Yes, it's a choice in the sense that they might be leaving their district, but if it's a graded out type of mobility, we think of that as differently. And to this point about what the Bridge report was really looking at kids moving between and within school years.
Right.
So at non-normal time, that's a kid who's more mobile is how we're thinking about it. Okay, then the last question is, how does achievement differ before and after a student uses choice? So in general, those who are exercising school choice tend to be lower performing on M-STEP, both before and after switching. I do want to put in my researcher sort of caution hat that this is not causal. And what I mean by that is I can't tell you that these differences are caused by where they're going. There are ways to get at doing that. There's one recent study by our colleagues down at the University of Michigan, our Mary colleagues, that did look at that. I'll mention that in a second. But only for a limited number of kids who had access to National Heritage Academies via the lottery mechanism that they enrolled kids through there. These are just descriptive numbers that I'm putting on the board. The one difference we do see, so as somebody who's looked at these kinds of patterns for, again, a very long time, the differences between light blue and dark blue are striking to me, in that they're not really very different. And this is what we found in our schools of choice work over the last few years, is there's not a lot of differences. And these are actually these are the same kids. So this became non-resident, for example, the second set of bars, that is child A's, the light blue is child A's M-STEP score on standard deviation unit, so about 0.2 below the mean. The light blue is that kid's score before switching out. The dark blue is that kid's score after switching out. Okay. In general, and the reason that we see the test scores so much lower for kids who are going into charters, both before and after, is that's highly, highly correlated to who's going into charter schools. Okay. When we exclude Detroit, that difference almost entirely goes away, though. So now we see relative parity both before and after among the switchers. Just to try to kind of combine a couple of ways of thinking about this. In higher performing districts, and I know that's a loaded term, but by that what I mean here is just districts with higher levels of M-STEP. For the sake of discussion today, in districts with higher levels of M-STEP, the people who stay are outperforming those who leave. They're getting higher M-STEP scores than those who leave. Charter students are scoring lower on M-STEP than their resident counterparts, and they live in districts that have lower levels of M-STEP. So the kids leaving their resident districts to attend a charter school are not only leaving districts with very low levels, or relatively low levels of M-STEP relative to the state average, they're also among the lowest scoring M-STEP users even in that low test score district.
Back at the arrow too, though, it does say in those who switch in charter school do better the next year.
Back at the switcher slide.
Looking for consistency, I don't see it.
That's right. So, but the comparison in this graph, light blue to dark blue, is the same kid. Okay, and this is including Detroit. So really what's going on is that in the kids leaving DPSCD to go to charter schools either in that area or outside of DPSCD are doing less worse than they were the year before, essentially. That's what that.
So they are improving.
They are improving. But that's a comparison between the same kids' test scores.
Okay.
These numbers here are comparisons of the kids who stay.
Okay.
These are different kids. They're not the choosers in this case.
Okay.
Okay, so that's sort of the extent to which we've got sort of new data to show you today. There has been a little bit of earlier research, and I would say school choice in Michigan is generally understudied relative to what we know about charters and interdistrict mobility in other states, just generally speaking. This is all new. These are all new numbers that I just presented to you today. There has been early work. I already mentioned our colleagues down at the University of Michigan recently did a randomized an experimental study that showed that for that National Heritage Academies, students attending those charter schools in Michigan had higher levels of math achievement. What's interesting about this study, what makes it different from very, very, very similar evaluations in other states, is that in this case, the positive effects were concentrated in non-poor, non-urban areas. Usually what happens is we see that the largest charter school effects in places like New York and Massachusetts, they're concentrated in the poorest and most urban areas. That's the opposite here in Michigan. We looked at gain and loss in test scores due to schools of choice a few years ago and didn't really see any differences at all, which is consistent with the numbers I put up here today. So that pattern stayed largely the same over time. And as we found in our early work that Dr. Kiesler mentioned at the beginning, we still continue to see that in general interdistrict choice is used by historically disadvantaged students. The one exception to that is except in districts that are struggling, the kids leaving those districts tend to be slightly more advantaged on traditional measures than the kids that live nearby. Just a couple of next steps so you know what we're up to. So I mentioned that the U.S. Department of Ed is funding a new set of work. So we're really excited about this because these are getting at what we call next generation research questions related to choice, which goes beyond the question of just are test scores better, but actually asks us to think about, for example, do teachers and teaching differ in charter schools? Almost half the kids learning in Detroit public schools are being taught by kids who are by charter teachers. We don't know a lot about charter teachers either in Michigan or nationally relative to what we know about teachers in general. So it's really important in places like Detroit and Flint and elsewhere to know more about the teachers teaching these kids. One of the things I'm personally very excited about, and it's an outgrowth of our work in Detroit, is what role does access to transportation play in both improving and hindering access to quality choices? Michigan has a very what we would call elaborate and rich set of policies that provide a lot of opportunity for a kid to choose depending on where they live. But if they can't get to that school, either because there's not a public transportation system, or they have trouble with the car, or in places like some of our rural communities, especially up north, if the weather intervenes. That's not quite the same kind of meaningful level of choice as it might be elsewhere. And then the question of what role do oversight and enrollment rules, whether it's authorization on the charter side or just in general districts that have the ability to, say, set enrollment deadlines, what role do those rules play in improving and hindering access to choices? And then finally, what information are parents actually using? Are they looking at some of the numbers I presented to you today, or are they thinking more holistically, more qualitatively about a school environment? We have suggestive answers to all these things, both here and elsewhere, but we're looking forward over the next 2 or 3 years and trying to get some firmer answers on these fronts. So,
And I just want to underscore two things that Dr. Collins said. One is, and I know when Dr. Strunk came and talked to us in June, she talked about the different types of research questions. So like Josh said, we've been looking at descriptive data, not causal data, not even really correlational data, mostly just what is there. And so that is a fruitful place to have policy discussions about what do we think might be happening, but we have not done research methods that would allow us to say we know what caused these things to happen. Right. That's what's coming in the next step, the more next generation. And that's what makes the Donarski study, the NHA study, they used a lottery, which is one of those methods to allow you to have, it's a randomized controlled experiment. So it's just making sure that we understand. I know when Catherine came in June, she talked a lot about the method for the inference, and that's what we want to make sure everybody keeps track of. And then the second is the School Choice Center that Michigan, that EPIC is part of, is really a big deal nationally. It's a really big honor, exciting that Josh and Catherine were able to bring it home to MSU as part of, it's a collaborative work with a couple other universities, but IES funded, hard to get. Those centers are very rarely given out. So, and to Josh's point, what better place to study school's choice than Michigan? We, as you can see, 22% of our students are doing it to some degree. So very excited to not only receive the information from this conversation, but drive it with research, with our data and our students at the same time that it's happening. So, Sheila?
Thank you both, to Vanessa and to Josh, for this is very intriguing data to take a look at. So I'll turn it over to board members for comments or questions. I'll start with Cassandra.
Well, this is very great information. Thank you very much for coming and sharing this with us. Just a couple of thoughts on, as you're looking at next steps, some other things to maybe take into consideration. I think you do really good work about the impact on the student that chooses to go into a choice situation. But I'm curious what the impact is on the students that choose not to go into a choice system. What happens, we certainly have these instances in Michigan where you'll have a traditional school on one side of the street and then a charter school opens up on the other. Like, what is the impact of both of them? Which I don't think, anecdotally, I think we all think we know, but I don't know that we necessarily have the data to demonstrate what that really means. And then also on a statewide level, I mean, you said Michigan certainly is the epicenter of studying this. It's great to have this micro information, but on a macro level, what does this mean for the state? What is we've seen some very plummeting, declining numbers over the last few years. Is there correlation, and how would you demonstrate that there's a correlation between those two? So those are a couple of the suggestions I would have that, as a policymaker, I would certainly be interested in understanding better.
Thank you. And the first one in particular is a very tough nut to crack and a very important one. Of everything that experts sort of try to untangle in this line of work, that's probably the one that has the most salience and that we know the least about. So I appreciate the comment, and I have written that down. So thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Z?
Okay. There are a number of magnet schools. Detroit's Renaissance and Cass Tech and King program are, and the School for Fine and Performing Arts is another one, which is special curriculum, and so you might live in the district, but you choose to go to that program as an alternate to your local. And then there's the International Baccalaureate School in Oakland, and which is another consortium school. Are data from these schools, is this lumped in with the resident schools?
It's an excellent question. They in this case they would be, since we were just looking at the district level. It's fairly straightforward for us to go at that school level as well. Happy to do that.
I am curious as to the other kinds of choices that people have, and of course, homeschooling is another aspect of it, and then the interaction between private schools and our public schools is another one. So these are just some other avenues that I'd be interested in the future. And I appreciate you sharing your work with us today.
At our Mary kickoff, I had a chance to talk with a woman from the Michigan Association of Nonprofit Schools and just mentioned, if you would want to partner with Mary to have, because we don't have non-public data in our data sets, obviously, for fairly obvious reasons. And so I think that's something we'd like to see if there's actual interest there and if we could do a data sharing. And because you're right, I think that's another pattern of choice that we don't pick up now, but is part of the story and of interest for us to understand. So looking forward to that partnership.
Okay. I see Michelle and then Pam.
I really like the questions that you're going to dive into in the future, and I appreciate that. And I also had some 2 cents to throw in. I don't know if consideration is given to the motivation it takes a parent to do fill out an application, even if it's a random sampling of people who apply. But I think there's also certain people who know to apply and are connected enough to know the process. So that's should be, and I don't know how you weigh that in or how you measure that, but and I do think this idea of transportation, living in Detroit and being somebody who's been in the middle of the choice stuff since 94 when my kids started going to school. These get at the heart of a lot of issues. One of the things that though that I know is a big issue in Detroit and probably other cities that have a higher concentration of charters is the special education differential. And so where there's higher need kids within the traditionals, higher numbers of IEPs, it's been estimated it's like a $40 million structural deficit into DPSCD every year because for whatever reason, more of the high needs kids are in that district and going to traditional schools, not the center-based schools, but they're going to to regular schools. So, so how that impacts a school, and maybe that could be with the oversight and enrollment rules, and even in the charter. Like I've tried to take my kid to a school of choice school that had a public school system that catered to hearing impaired, and I had a son I had recently adopted who had hearing impairment, and even though they were a school of choice, they would not take him, and it was very baffling to me. Whereas if he hadn't had a disability, he would have been accepted. And I suppose I could have sued, but said than done. But I think there's restrictions sometimes on the schools of choice outside of charter, and that the people making the choices sometimes is not the parent; it's the institution on who they want to accept.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We went in the direction of that sort of these enrollment rules, I'll call them, in part because there are differences with what, say, the authorizing legislation says is supposed to happen and what actually happens at the district level. So it's not legally possible for a district to make decisions based on those characteristics. But one of the things we're interested in doing is learning how some of the decisions. So, for example, and we're collecting these sort of at the district by district level right now. Differences in the deadline to apply, for example, might have real impact on who chooses to actually apply, right? If the deadline is March 1st of the upcoming year, that means you're talking about, in some sense, it's possible, we don't know yet, it's an empirical question, it's possible that might have some sort of screening effect. For example, this is a parent who thinks 6 or 8 months ahead of enrollment time where they want their kid to be next year, as opposed to a district where the enrollment decision is July 15th or something. The later the deadline, the more potential for sort of fiscal impacts to be uncertain on that individual district. So you can certainly understand why districts are trying to kind of set these rules as early as possible, just as one example. Whether the application is available on a very easy to access or easy to find place on the website, we're also documenting just really basic stuff like that. I think this is an interesting set of things, and it's highly important. And I do think that helps determine, my guess, I don't know, it helps determine who ends up actually in those districts.
Okay, thank you. And to Pam?
I have a question, and well, first of all, let me just thank you for this work. This is awesome, and so look forward to seeing the next steps and where this work goes.
Thank you.
I guess as I'm listening and I'm looking at the data, and I look forward to looking at it a little bit more, but I'm just thinking about the divestment in a lot of our communities and how we're looking at that. And to Cassandra as well as Michelle's point, we see how that has impacted not only those communities, but the rippling effect that has had. And so to see this with our schools, to see and just only imagine, anecdotally, we can talk about the impact, but I really look forward to seeing what that looks like numerically and in the data. But just to think about, white flight from communities, and we see it with our schools, and we know that comes from disinvestment and putting more money into charters or other entities. But in the end, I see where the story is going in numbers, that it just does not bode well, not only for the children who are left behind, those who are moving around, but to us as a state in general. And then my question is, I just want to understand the slides a little bit better, and the ones in particular, I'm looking at page 12, and I just want to make sure that I understand the y-axis and what this, again, because your inference that you have here, I just want to make sure that it's matching up.
Is it this one on the screen? I'm just to make sure we're on the same.
No, I'm looking at students who exercise school choice are lower performing before and after switching. And then, those two slides. If you could just explain those again, because I want to make sure I understand.
Sure. So there's sort of two questions we can ask when we ask this kind of question. One is relative. We can ask how kids are doing on M-STEP relative to kids who are not exercising any choice. And when we talk about kind of the comparison one makes in an evaluation, like a formal evaluation such as Vanessa described experimentally, that's ultimately what we're trying to get at, because we're trying to approximate a world where we can ask a question, a sort of a counterfactual, what would have happened to that kid had they not been attending a charter school, for example. Another way you can get at that same question is you can ask for the same kid, what happens after they attend. That's not the same thing as saying what would have happened had they never attended, obviously. But if you could compare the same kid at the same point in time, that's what we would like to try to do. So the way researchers tend to ask that question when they don't have data like from a lottery is they tend to look at it both ways. They look at the kids at the before and after test scores for the same kid, before I choose and after I go to charter school. And then they kind of couple that with this comparison of myself to my neighbors who aren't me. This slide is the comparison of the before and after. So for say the big bar graphs down, that light blue for became charter, those are my state standardized M-STEP. What that means is that I'm comparing these kids to the statewide average. Numbers above 0 means that kid is performing above the statewide average. Numbers below 0 means that on average these kids are performing below the statewide average. So that particular graph tells me that for kids who became charter students, they tended to be performing well below the state mean before they went into a charter school, and also well below the state mean after they went to a charter school, just a little less not so well. So that dark blue goes up closer to 0. That means that on average, after I go into a charter school, my test scores go from something like 0.8 of a standard deviation below the mean, which is a lot, to something more like 60.6 standard deviations below the mean, which is also a lot, but it's not as low. But as the next graph shows you, that change is due almost entirely by comparing kids who were in DPSCD and then went to charter schools. When we exclude those kids statewide, we don't really see much difference before and after for individual kids who leave for a charter school.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
It's for that 1 year on an M-STEP test?
These are for year-to-year comparisons in 2015 and then 16. But the numbers look the same if I go from 13 to 14 or 14 to 15. So we just picked the most recent we had available, yeah.
I do think, again, Josh doesn't control for this right now, it's fine. But I do think it's worthy to note, these data don't show 16, 17, 17 to 18, of which time the governance of DPSCD is different than it was here.
That's
so these numbers may look different over
over
time as Dr. VD continues the work he has going.
And I don't,
There is some historical context that you have to think about too. That's again, when we have policy conversations, I think we need to talk about the historical context with the actual facts sitting in front of us, so we can see what happened, and then we can try to hypothesize some of what might be occurring.
Yeah, and I will say this too, less in terms of what the sort of today's numbers are telling us, and more what I've seen working on M-STEP and for M-STEP MEEP data on this in the past, but also in spending a fair amount of time, honestly, in other places like New Orleans and Florida and California and other places where I've done this work. To me, sort of looking at it with those evaluative eyes, I would say that the preponderance of the evidence we have in Michigan so far, and that's a big question so far, is that if there are major differences due to school choice, they're probably not found on M-STEP. They might be found. We haven't looked at things like grad rates. We haven't looked at things like parent satisfaction. We haven't looked at fiscal impacts on kids who stay or achievement impacts for kids who stay. Those are research questions we just haven't gotten to.
Right.
But just looking at the numbers we do have suggests that the bigger differences are probably found away from measures captured by M-STEP and on something else we just haven't gotten to yet.
And to Pam's point about what we know policy-wise is that choice does have fiscal implications. Because of our funding model. So we just know that. That is, if a kid walks out the door or shows up in the door, he or she comes with dollars. Like dollars move with kids. So to Josh's point, if we looked at impact on funding, these graphs might look very different. And that's where we're trying to go in some of the future work. Well, thank you for the opportunity to have Josh come in and share. Thank you for the question.
It was truly a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so
and
much.
very intriguing data. Thank you. It is now 12:17. We still have one presentation left under the committee of the whole meeting. I would like to make a recommendation that we postpone that presentation until after lunch. And we'll begin with the presentation on the Every Student Succeeds Act implementation. If we can now adjourn or recess for lunch. Typically, we allocate an hour for lunch. I'm wondering if we could abbreviate that to 40 minutes, and could we still begin at 1 o'clock?